Hey everyone, welcome to week 60. This is day 3. This is Wednesday. This is our ongoing It's a Mess week. We're trying to come to terms with mud, basically. So on Monday, we painted my mother. Tuesday, yesterday, for Spanish Tuesdays, Martes de Español, we painted an empty glass jar. And today, well, we'll see how we're going to do. Okay, let's get started. This is day 3. This is our third day of our ongoing It's a Mess week. And honestly, I think I need it this week. I really feel it's almost like a personal thing that I'm doing with the paintings during this week. And the reason I think that they are very important for me is because I have a strong sense of who I am as a painter. But that doesn't mean that we are not riddled by insecurities all the time. And I'm not immune to any of those thoughts where doubt creeps into your mind and you see your painting and you start fearing that it's not enough. You start questioning if what you're painting is the result of your shortcomings or if it's really you having interiorized who you are as a painter and how those deficiencies, because, many times we see them as such, are a small part of what it means to be an integral painter. And that you've been able to deal with that, plus all of your successes, plus all of these struggling throughout the years, and all these variables amass the painter that you are, and that you've considered all of these things, and you've been able to extract all the strength from all of these experiences and made it into a painting that is true to your own intent. I would say that I'm in the path that leads to the latter, but it doesn't mean that self-doubt is going to be something that does not exist in this path. No, it very much so does, I feel. I don't expect it to ever go away. I don't want to be an overconfident painter. I don't ever want to be that. If anything, I want painting to teach me constantly about the things that I am not. I want experiences, like I spoke on Monday, that I share with other painters to broaden my horizons, to open my eyes, to show me that even the things that are closest to my heart are still unbeknownst to me. Even the things that I think I know wholeheartedly can become remarkably strange to me. It is fascinating to see somebody shine a new light on something that you thought you knew inside and out, that you thought you've explored every nook and cranny, and that you thought you've uncovered and unearthed everything that there is to know about this thing that you hold dear. And suddenly the appearance, the existence of other people in your life show you that we only know a speck about what there is to know of the world of painting. I think that experiences like that, they sort of feed off of our insecurities, but they also show us that there is this huge path ahead and they push us forward if we are willing to listen. I always preface that every single road that opens up is there to be traveled if we're willing to put in the hard work. We have to lower our defenses and accept that being vulnerable is a big part of being a painter. So very happy that experiences like the one I had last week led to me saying, okay, what sort of painter am I? And let's reinforce the sort of painter that I know I am. It's like checking yourself from time to time. And I think that that's healthy and honest. So I was very happy with what happened on Monday. The fact that I thought that the paintings from this week can be still translated through a 4-color palette, and how the expressiveness that I feel is inherent to that 4-color palette, because you have to express. I mean, it's not a palette that is meant to represent faithfully the nature that is in front of us. It's not. You have to reinterpret with that palette. There's no other way around it. It's an exercise of interpretation and constructing relationships. That is what that palette asks of you when you decide to work within a 4-color palette range. There is no other way to use it to its fullest potential but that path of acceptance. So I was very happy that that's the choice that I made for this week. Like I said on Monday, I think it's becoming a constant. I think that having that security of that palette just run underneath a lot of the paintings that I've been doing the past couple of weeks just gives me a sense of really thinking about the very basics of painting. And I loved that I can take this very primitive, expressive palette and say, I am a very, I was going to say undisciplined painter, but I know myself and I know that I do have discipline. I guess I'm just a painter that relishes or feels comfortable or feels unafraid of mud. When I see a muddy palette, when I see colors that are just, battling with each other, just blending into each other, creating all these wonderful grays with hues in them, I find that fascinating. To me, that's not mud. To me, that is everything. I know that I enjoy myself there. So perhaps when I see something that is apparently a deficiency in mixing technique or a shortcoming when trying to achieve quote unquote clean color, it is there that I find joy. I don't find frustration. I'm not afraid to navigate all that murkiness. And even in that grayness, even in that heavy atmosphere that is created by a muddy palette, I realize that I can spot opportunities to speak about things that are sensitive. So I think that Monday's painting, my mother kind of crossing this threshold. In her room, she was very static. And when she had the opportunity to sort of teach herself how to walk again, the fact that she was crossing this room, that she was leaving this room into this openness of natural light in the hallway of our house, I was like, yeah, this is beautiful. Like I said on Monday, this is very fragile, and I want to see if I can speak through it with a palette that is expressive. And I want to double down on this, but a palette that needs you to understand that what you're doing is an act of translation to painting. So I thought that was very interesting with Monday's painting. Tuesday's painting, I thought that it was part of these lingering thoughts, lingering feelings that I still have from that introduction of Bismuth Yellow Week, and how the idea of nothingness was all I needed to understand that there doesn't need to be a pot at the end of the rainbow, that there doesn't need to be a huge exclamation point in your painting, that a painting doesn't have to exalt anything in particular, that what I really need is nothing. And I thought that it was really nice if I could paint this empty glass jar that used to be a honey jar, this glass jar that is being backlit by this natural light coming from our window, this north light coming from our window. So there's nothing really extraordinary about it. It's backlit, it's very gray, there's a futility to all of it. You just have to accept that that is what that glass looks like, and that there's nothing much to it. And the moments that are there that would make this a very beautiful, sensible painting are somehow beyond my reach, I feel, because I'm not like a super, super sensitive painter. I struggle with my heavy-handedness trying to capture those ellipses and trying to capture those swirling moments of the glass that make up the jar. So it's actually kind of frustrating, but also very liberating when you just tell yourself, okay, I am this heavy-handed painter, and I'm painting this lighting condition that is not really the most adequate to try and describe the beautiful quality of glass that is inherent to this empty jar. And yet there is a painting in there. There is an experience worth having in there through painting. And I think that that's the most important part. A lot of that acknowledgement, a lot of that acceptance, I think is part of the makeup of yesterday's painting session. And I assumed all my inability to describe with elegance those moments of drawing that are absolutely necessary to try and speak about the construction of this jar. But I'm okay with it. I'm okay with a painting that puts me through the ringer and makes me struggle and makes me understand that even in that murkiness, even in that grayness, there has to be a sense of discipline, which is something that I'll always struggle with. I always try to liberate myself from all these naturalist expectations that I think are imposed onto my work, or that I sometimes self-impose on my work. And I always try to just break away from those chains. And yet I always understand that I do need and I yearn for moments of discipline. So it was really nice. It was a really nice painting that was an internal push and pull. And I really liked the end result. I think yesterday's painting has this duality to it, where there is this inherent fragile nature to anything that is made up of glass, but there's also this heaviness to it, this heftiness to this jar, where I can envision it being dropped and feeling that it can survive a fall. And I think that that's a very cool thing. That's a really interesting thing to be able to access while you're painting. And I think a lot of that has to do with that grayness, that messiness, that dirtiness that is part of who I am as a painter. This is not just about how I mix paint. I think that there's this liberty with which I confront paintings that I think is also part of that messiness. And again, this willingness to break away usually takes me to places where the uncertainty that I meet will inevitably lead me to places that I'm going to struggle, and doubt usually translates to having a messy painting. So that's kind of my equation. I think those are the variables that make up the painter that I am, and I'm pretty okay with them. I'm pretty comfortable with those. For today, something a little bit different. I think yesterday we were trying to be elegant, but with a sense of gravity. It's not this bit of glass that feels airy. It's not this glass that is conscious about its fragile nature. I think yesterday we painted something that could hold weight. But I thought today we could explore a sense of chaos and order that was inherent to this object, to this beautiful object I had lying around. And maybe that is also part of the push and pull that I felt with yesterday's painting. I've always loved to paint cardboard boxes. And the reason, I guess, is kind of simple because they feel organic in a sense, but they also speak about the very geometric, basic ways of understanding how form turns in space. So you have this abstract sense of how to depict or understand the three-dimensionality of form, and yet you also have this object that feels alive in many ways, that feels that it can be affected by touch, by pressure, by handling, by humidity. I don't know. I think it's a beautiful thing. So I saw this box and I just tried to open the box, but it's one of those boxes that people put so much tape on it that you end up almost gnawing at it, trying to break it open. So this is the mess that I made in attempting to open this box. But as soon as I opened it, I thought, oh my God, this is like a beautiful instance of this object. And I kept it, and I told myself, I have to paint this at some point. And I didn't know when I was going to paint it, but after yesterday's painting, I thought, okay, this could be a really nice painting to do after the things I've learned from painting this glass jar. And I think that this is the coolest part of this whole exercise, this whole painting project. Not the fact that we're doing painting after painting after painting. It's not just about going outside and painting, or sitting down and painting, or standing up and painting, or painting from life, or painting from photos, or painting portraits, or painting objects, or painting places. It doesn't matter. I feel that all of those things are sort of irrelevant in a way. What I do find essential to what we've been doing is just paying attention. It may be as simple as that. It just means that you paint something and you think about what you wanted to paint, and you compare that intent with what you ended up painting, and then you realize, okay, maybe I got close, or maybe I strayed far away from my intentions. Maybe wonderful things happened when you took that left turn, or maybe terrible things happened. And then you try to evaluate, what are the things that I thought I did well? What are the things that escaped me? Where did I lose my concentration? What are the things that are still unknown to me, that I still struggle with tremendously? And you evaluate all those things, and you can try to talk through them like we do with these voiceovers, but it could be like an inner monologue. It doesn't have to be something that you write down. You certainly don't have to have a microphone in your face. And then what you try to do is learn something from it. It doesn't have to be an incredible lesson. It doesn't have to be this huge life-changing lesson. It doesn't mean that the very next day you're going to be a better painter. No, of course not. But what it means is that you are conscious of everything that you're doing, that there is willingness to search, that there is willingness to ask questions, that you're trying to answer those questions. And many times we don't have the answers, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What painting is asking of us is just to try and make sense of things, but we don't have to come up with the answers. Nobody is waiting at the other side of the painting saying, okay, this is a test, and if you don't have the answers, you're going to fail it. No, that only happens in school, and that's why kind of school sucks. But in real life, nobody is going to grade your paintings. That is the one amazing thing about thinking that your work doesn't have to be validated by anyone except yourself. That there is no sense in saying that a painting is good or a painting is bad. That doesn't lead you anywhere. Good paintings, bad paintings, they all have things to teach us. All of them. it's amazing how things change, again, if we are willing to understand how very different they are once a painting becomes our own and not becomes our teachers or our instructors or our gallery director. They don't belong to them. Maybe when we decide to socialize them, yeah, sure, they're going to be part of that socializing effort. But at first, paintings have to be our own. This has to mean something to us first, and we have to try and make sense of them. So I thought that today's painting was an opportunity to deal with that chaos, that unorganized nature that makes up the painter that I am. That's the path I've chosen. Those are the conscious decisions that I've made when trying to solve my painting. And I think with today's painting, I felt a connection. This certainly does not mean that I'm putting myself at the same level as this amazing painter, but I felt a connection with Menzel's work. Again, I want to make this clear. I am never going to be as good as Menzel. Menzel had more talent in one of the thin gray hairs in his head than I'll ever have in my whole life. So his understanding of painting, his talent, escapes me completely. This is somebody who's beyond my reach. This is one of the greatest painters and draftspeople in history. When I say I'm connecting with somebody, please understand it not as me feeling like my painting is reminiscent of one of the most amazing painters ever. No, not at all. But what I do feel is that a lot of his sensitivity is something that I can share, is something that I respect, is something that I can find refuge in, and is something that I can echo through my own work. I think that idea of just looking at something, being mesmerized by something, is something that Menzel did so well. I mean, if you look at his drawings or studies or sketches, whatever you want to call them, I don't care. I honestly don't care how people nominate things. But if you look at those sort of works, they many times didn't lead to anything. It wasn't like he was making a bunch of drawings just so that he could use them to make a bigger painting, a larger, more serious work of art. No, sometimes he just drew because he just wanted to investigate and then draw it with graphite or charcoal or pastel or do a gouache painting or do a quick painting in oil. Didn't matter. It didn't have to lead anywhere. Those efforts were not validated or understood as useful if and only if they were part of the construction of something larger. No, he just answered to the call to draw or paint. I feel that is so amazing. And I think that there's a looseness to it. There's almost like a feeling of having to surrender to be able to do that. And whenever I feel that I have to answer to that calling, to surrender to that responsibility that I have with myself, I think that what lets me be loose enough, be flexible enough to be able to answer to those things is my messiness, is my detachment from all these notions of what painting should be. I have no idea what painting should be, of what a painting should look like, of the responsibilities that painting should carry. And I feel that that's something totally separate from painting. I think that when you decide to divorce yourself from all those things, painting is still possible. And painting is wonderful, by the way. Painting is incredible when you decide that that is the path that you want to take. So today's painting has a little bit of that. It has a little bit of wonderment. It has that sense of discovery. It has that willingness to say, yes, I'm going to paint you. And you don't have to understand why you're going to paint something, but you just have to know that you're willing to say yes when you have that feeling. Having this 4-color palette accompany me through this search and through this exercise of acceptance, I think it's a perfect partner. So very happy with these first 3 days. I think there's this freshness, this looseness, kind of this rawness that I'm going to try to summon or maybe just evoke with the 2 paintings that we have left during this week. So we'll see how that goes. But that's tomorrow and Friday. This is going to be it for today. So join us tomorrow to see all the twists and turns ahead of us in this wonderful path. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.